So after the very good win for Labour last Friday in Wellingborough, um, and of course Kingswood. I was going to say Kings Lynn, but yeah, different place. Uh, a lot of people have talked about how good Reform did, and I myself, I will admit, okay, Reform did sort of pretty well. 10%, nothing to sneeze at. However, it doesn't, shall we say, suggest the runaway victory that Reform might do. Now, will this damage the Tories at the general election? Oh, absolutely. If this pattern gets repeated, like across the country where Reform run, then you can sort of guarantee 10% of that right wing vote not going to the Tories, but going to Reform. Now, there's a lot of people that I've said, especially Farage, who said our goal, our aim now is to go after the red wall, that we are going to capture all those Brexit Labour voters. Now, here's the problem. The Reform Party, first of all, technically not UKIP. Yes, it has all of the financial backing, but the thing with UKIP was it was a single issue party. Always was, always had been. Even though they put out that manifesto, which was, well, pretty much a copy and paste of the Conservative manifesto, just a bit more to the right, they were always running on that issue of we want a referendum on EU membership. That is what we're going to run on. That is our central core. That is what we are pushing for. Everything else is just a bit of window dressing. And of course, now you've done Brexit. You've done it. You've got it. You've technically had 4 years of Brexit in action, and we've seen what's happened to the polls, that people's idea of it has gotten less and less and less, that Brexit has become less of a political issue. But of course, you are still going to have that hardcore, but not majority, but that hardcore support who are always going to be like, oh, you don't understand. We haven't Brexited properly, or Brexit hasn't been done right. But the reality is, when you look at the policy that people like Reform would want to push, it is not going to have a mass appeal to especially get the support of people in the red wall, and that is not really going to draw that working class vote, which it would need to have any sort of hope of actually getting some support at a general election. Because a lot of people have talked about very recently, you'll hear talks of Canada 93 coming up again. Where's Reform's base? Where is it going to strike from? Where is its stronghold going to be? That has not materialized. So over the weekend, we've had some pollsters who have looked at Reform UK and said, well, actually, the party might very well be doomed because you cannot just run on this idea of Brexit hasn't been done well, or that Brexit hasn't been done properly, because in many ways, you've had a Brexit backing government for quite some time who has done and followed through on many of these crazy Brexit promises. But every single time it's, we haven't done it properly. They weren't true Brexiteers. Always some form of excuse. And the thing is, you've had people slowly move away from thinking that Brexit was a good idea, because it was based on the promises of people like Nigel Farage, etc., all those Brexiteers. And they're like, well, actually, you said this hasn't been delivered. You say, oh, they haven't done it properly, but actually, people like Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, etc., all those Brexiteers that were in government for quite some time have done or tried to do what people like the Nigel Farage have said they should do all along, but it hasn't worked out that way. You look at Port Talbot in particular. where all those steelworkers were told by people like Nigel Farage, by all these Brexiteers, that if you want to guarantee the future of the British steel industry, you should vote Brexit. And now they're turning around and saying, well, actually, voting for Brexit has not made our job secure. So there's a lot of stuff going on here where you have very, very much the Brexit minority, or at least like that little core support, which is never really going to go away. There's always going to be a core Brexit group, but I think that the outer group now has slowly started to shrink. And if you look at pictures of reform rallies, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen a photo of a reform rally with probably anyone below the age of 70 or 60. And we know that when you look at polls, young people have a lot a lot of support for the EU. And that is going to come back into it. And as we said, eventually, we're going to end up rejoining down the line. Um, it's inevitable that happens. But it's just a matter of when, and of course the political will, etc., etc., etc. There's still stuff and work to do on that front. But yeah, the idea that Reform Party is going to sort of storm to victory, I think a lot of these experts that have come out recently, especially one of the leading pollsters has come out and said, yeah, they might really not go after this. So we're just gonna have a look at this because this came up in the Independent as well. There we go. So John Curtice came out and said this. So Britain's top pollster, Sir John Curtice, has now poured cold water on the claims that predicts its prospects in a Labour heartlands now remain slim. The most recent by-elections saw Reform make a significant dent in the Conservative vote, taking third overall in the vote share in both Wellingborough and Kingswood. But the party has not yet proven it can land a blow on Labour. In Wellingborough, despite the Reform receiving 13% of the vote, Labour still overturned a Conservative stronghold with the largest by-election swing since 1994, with a majority of 6,436 votes. Sir John, who is a professor of politics at Strathclyde University, said to The Independent that the crucial factor that distinguishes those who switched to Reform is that they still believe in Brexit. And although he conceded that Labour's vote is not, quote, wholly invulnerable to the ex-Brexit party, that vulnerability is limited because around 3/4 of Labour's votes stem from people who want to be inside the European Union. He said, if you're discontenting of the Tories and you want to change your mind about Brexit, then you tend to go to Labour. However, if you're discontent with the Tories, but you're still a Brexit believer, you tend to switch to Reform. So that is the situation where it is with these people and where that tends to happen. And I think that Brexit core support never really going to go well. It is eventually, like I say, if you look at the rallies, look how old those people are. There's very, very few young people attending those rallies. So eventually, this will be something that just gets less and less and less with time. But we'll eventually see what happens. But this idea that Reform is going to come and it's going to sort of snatch sort of away the Labour votes and he's going to sort of dominate in the red wall. I'm very, very doubtful on that. And like I say, if you are discontent with the Tories and you don't think Brexit's you've changed your mind about Brexit, you're not going to vote for Reform. You're going to vote for Labour. Only if you have that core Brexit support, which again we have seen drop away drastically over the past couple of years, then you're going to reform. So that is a very, very increasingly shrinking vote share that they are now desperately trying to hang on and grab at the next general election. And the thing is, you've got to imagine it that this is like delving into sand and saying, "Look how much sand I've got," while it slips away from through your fingers. So that is, I think, the best way to sort of picture reform and its hopes that it will eventually have to try and pivot to something. That is why they are going hard on immigration. And even then, that's not necessarily proving to be a popular factor. They are gonna have to find something else, um, other than immigration and other than Brexit to try and sort of attract other people to their party. Because if not, that sand is running through their fingers very, very quickly. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.